Hey Mastery Seekers, it's Agi here. I'm so grateful that you're listening to this podcast. And over time I've realized that these conversations are evolving from just listening to actually interacting. So I've created a space for us to come together and dive deeper into these conversations and the actionable insights to implement. I'd love for you to join us. Go to 𝗧𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗣𝗦. In this episode 456, you will discover how your reality is shaped by your limiting beliefs and how to change that. Welcome to Personal Development Mastery, the podcast that equips you with the simple and consistent actions that will help you create a life of purpose and fulfillment. I'm your host, 𝗣𝗢𝗜𝗚𝗧𝗦. By the end of this episode, you are going to learn the root causes of your limiting beliefs and how they shape your reality. And you will discover practical steps to eliminate these beliefs and experience immediate energetic shifts. Before we dive in, remember Mastery Seekers, if you want to go deeper into the episodes, join us at Mastery Seekers Tribe, the free community, for more. Today it is my real pleasure to speak with Blake Lefkoe. Blake, you are a holistic health coach and a certified facilitator of the Lefkoe Method, a transformative process developed by your late father that focuses on eliminating the mental and emotional blocks that prevent people from achieving their full potential. You are passionate about helping others free themselves from the limitations that keep them stuck and guiding them to live healthier, happier lives, more aligned with their passions and their values. Blake, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm looking forward to this conversation, and I know, and I will say that as a little preface to the conversation, that because you are in Hawaii and I am in the UK, the time difference, it is from my experience, having done this for many, many years, it is the most difficult time zone. So I'm glad that you accommodated the difference. It's very, very early in the morning from you.
It's okay. I'm going to get to watch sunrise here in a little bit.
Beautiful. Blake, I am looking forward to discussing with you and exploring limiting beliefs, and actually even more than that, breaking free from the limiting beliefs that keep us stuck in negative patterns. And I think everyone listening now can relate to some way with what negative patterns are in their life. Before we go there, I would like to hear a little bit about your background. From what I understand, what I find interesting is that your father created this method, and then you got rebellious against it, and you turned your back on it, and then you return, obviously. So coming back and speaking about it. So I would like to hear about that rebellious phase, and possibly what I would like to hear is that turning point. What happened that brought you back?
Sure. So I grew up in a house with two parents that were very into personal development, personal growth, helping people. And that was what they did. That's what they talked about at the dinner table. That was just, what I heard about constantly. And so I did what a lot of people do. And I just rebelled. And I said, I just want to have fun. I don't want to look at my stuff. And I traveled and I partied and I went skydiving and I surfed and I just got into all these really fun things. And I eventually moved to Hawaii and traveled from here. And then one day I woke up and I was in my late 30s. I was a single mom in a just kind of unhealthy, unstable relationship. I was bartending. I was drinking far too much and using other substances. And I just kind of realized that my life was unfulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
It was unsustainable. I wasn't treating myself well. I wasn't attracting healthy people. And I wasn't being the kind of mom that my son deserved. And so I found my way back to this method completely organically. And I was so fortunate that I had this tool accessible to me. And I started working on myself. And I also sat with some plant medicine, which was pretty powerful as well. And I got sober. And over the course of the last 3 years, I got out of 3 decades in the restaurant industry, got trained in this, started my own business,
Mm-hmm.
have completely changed all relationships, how I show up in the world, how the world shows up for me, the people that I attract, the community that I'm a part of, the man that's in my life, the kind of mother I am. And it's just been such a 180 profound journey. And I am so grateful every day that I've been able to get where I am and continue to grow and live a life that is so authentic to me and what feels right to me and not what I think I should be living or I think I should be doing. And
I think
I have
that's a situation that many people find or have found themselves into. And can I? There is one thing I wanted to ask you about your story. What you just said. You said that one day you woke up and. Was there something? Was that literally one specific day? Did something happen, or was it?
So I had broken up with a boyfriend who it was like a ridiculous relationship. He didn't want a child, and I had a child who was my first priority. And we had tried to make it work for so long. And he was an alcoholic, and my back went out. So I was out of the water and I was in pain. And I had just kind of been on this little bender. It had been Halloween, and I'd just been partying and this and drinking at work. And yeah, it was just this moment of just like, oh my gosh, what what am I doing? So it was kind of all those 3 things that compounded, just being in physical pain, emotional pain, and just being hungover and going, why?
I get it.
It's gotta be more.
There is the way you described it, that moment, as you said, there is, that insight that comes, or that, light bulb that says something clicks and you have a knowing that there wasn't there before. So I think
Yeah.
I can relate with that. Blake, can we, because if I understand correctly, the big transformation and what you were describing about how beautiful things are happening now and how things have changed in your life to a large extent is because you followed the method that your dad taught. And I assume also that it is because some limiting beliefs or some beliefs that you had that you identified them and you broke through them. So I would like to use that and talk about limiting beliefs. And what I would like to begin with, and I think it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on it, is why someone might ask, but why beliefs? And, we know that our beliefs shape the way we see the world, our reality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, can you give me your thoughts on that, on the importance of beliefs, so you can get, the foundation, and then we'll go deeper into the limiting ones.
Sure. So our beliefs shape not just our world, but they shape how we see our world, what
Mhm.
shows up for us. And if you believe that relationships don't work, that's what you're going to see. That's what's going to show up for you. It's like you wear these glasses, right? With these relationships don't work glasses. And you don't notice the ones that do. They're not in your stratosphere. And even if they are, you're almost blinded to them. You assume, oh, they fight or this or that. And so when you're able to eliminate that belief, it's like you just take these glasses off.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden you're able to see things different. And furthermore, in the bigger piece is there's an energetic shift that happens and you start attracting different things as well. So, for example, I used to have the belief that people don't like me. And I just found examples of it everywhere. And I was looking for examples of it everywhere. And oh, I didn't get invited to this, or this person didn't this, or this thing happened, or this thing didn't happen. And that was also the energy that I was bringing to things.
Mhm.
And as that shifted, and then it was amazing, right? Because when a belief goes away, it's this moment where it clicks. And all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, but this person's always been there for me. And this person reaches out to me and I get 10 text messages a day from friends. And I did get invited to this thing. And so, it's just amazing how when we believe, we're not good enough, that's literally all we see. And we just see examples of it everywhere. And when you shift that, your perspective just completely switches.
Mhm.
And we don't even realize a lot of the time that these beliefs, that we have them, that they're in our way, that they are limiting us.
That is, I think, what I would like to ask you next, because you just said we don't even realize them, and that is true. They run in a way on the background of some kind, and they dictate or they filter, as you use the
Mm-hmm.
analogy of the glasses. I like that very much, the tinted glasses, that everything looks in a certain way through that, and then you forget about that there is even a lens. You don't even see the lens, you only see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is there any, and then now I will also refer to the method that you teach. Is there a way that helps one actually start becoming aware of those limiting beliefs that there are there?
Once you start doing this work, you do start to become more aware.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it depends on the person. It depends on the pattern that they're working on. Some beliefs are easier to find. A lot of the time, people spend a lot of time and energy talking themselves out of their beliefs. So, trying to think of a good example. Sometimes people feel like I'm not worthy or I'm not lovable.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, but, I know my partner loves me and I know my kids love me. And, but it's this, it takes energy. You're constantly talking yourself into, oh, I know that I am. And here's why I am. But if you believed you were lovable, you wouldn't have to talk yourself into it. It's like affirmations. If you believe you're good enough, you don't have to say I'm good enough because you know you are. And so we spend so much energy trying to logically talk ourselves out of our beliefs. And when you get rid of them, you no longer have to expend that energy because they're just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so some beliefs are very conscious in that we're constantly trying to talk ourselves out of them. And I'll even have people say, oh, I worked on that. I don't believe that anymore. And I'm like,
Can
well,
you
say
give
it
me an
out loud.
example? Can you give me an example
Yeah.
of a belief like
So
that?
the most common belief that I work with, I'd say 95% of a first session with somebody, we work on the belief I'm not good enough.
Yes,
And it's
I'm not
just so
surprised.
prolific. It's
Yes.
just so common. And it's not just a common belief, but it's at the root of a lot of different patterns, emotional and behavioral, right? If you believe I'm not good enough, how likely are you to start a project, right? So it's a procrastination thing. It's a self-worth thing. It's a negative self-talk thing. It's a not going after what you want thing. It's just, one of the causes of a lot of patterns. And people say, oh, I used to think that, but now I know that I am, and, this and that. And because I do this, but it's all these qualifiers. It's still this having to talk yourself into it. And so I'll have people just say the belief out loud. And I'm like, how does it feel when you say that? And they're like, oh, it feels terrible. And a lot of people can feel beliefs in their body. People say, oh, I feel that in my throat, or my neck feels tight, or I feel that in my stomach, the sinking feeling. And you're like, well, if you didn't believe that, it wouldn't feel anything to say. Say I'm a monkey. Say I'm a monkey. I'm like, does that feel tight in your throat? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, because you don't believe that. So sometimes you have to kind of get people in touch with that underneath all that justification, that belief is there. And then you're able to get rid of it. And what's neat is when you go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about this specifically because you mentioned that 95%, which is overwhelming percent, that's in the same belief, I'm not good enough. And what I wanted to ask is, out of these people, how many are aware that there is this limiting belief? Because I doubt that most people come to you and say, Blake, I have this belief that I'm not good enough. I think most people would actually say, no, I don't have that belief. I really don't have that. But it is there. So
I don't know what the percentage is. I know a lot of people are pretty aware of it, and they just feel it. Okay. And then some people kind of feel it underneath, but they talk themselves out of it. And some people really feel like, oh, I've worked through that in therapy or this or that. But on some level, it's still there. If you have to talk yourself out of it, it's still there. And once you really actually eliminate it, you're able to see that shift. And what's cool is, in the beginning of the session, you say the belief out loud, and there's usually a physical and a emotional component. So sometimes people will say, oh, that makes me feel really sad. It feels really uncomfortable. I want to cry, I feel it in my throat or whatever. And you go through the whole process. And then at the end you say, okay, take a deep breath, say, I'm not good enough. And then they're like, that just sounds so silly. It just doesn't resonate at all. I'm like, well, does it still make you feel sad? They're like, no. Like, do you still feel that tightness in your throat? They're like, no, it's gone. And if it's not fully, sometimes you're like, oh, there's still a little bit. We go back and we clean it up until it gets to the point where it's like saying I'm a monkey. That just doesn't resonate at all. It just sounds ridiculous. And then it's gone and you can move on to the next.
And how long does it take to eliminate a belief like the way you just described now?
It depends on the person. The first time through is kind of the longest. But I've had clients that can eliminate a belief in 10 minutes.
Right. Okay.
Once they've done it a few times. Everyone's different. But I have had clients that they come in and it's like 5 beliefs a session and they just turn patterns around so fast. It's just incredible. So the way we do it is you come in and you say, this is my pattern. This is my emotional behavioral pattern. This is the thing I want to shift. So anything, anxiety, procrastination, people pleasing, depression, addiction, anything you're not doing that you want to be doing, things you are doing you don't want to be doing. And then you look for the specific beliefs that contribute to that pattern. And as you eliminate those beliefs, that pattern just shifts. There's no integration. There's no, I have to remember these tips or tricks or tools, or I have to remember to switch. There's nothing. You just go back into life and your life changes.
Is that, you mentioned earlier on that at some point an energetic shift happens. That's, I think, the term that you use. So I would like to hear more about this particular energetic shift.
So I had a client recently, and I've never seen anything like this, but she got rid of a belief, and there's this moment where it clicks and you realize that this thing you've been carrying around as the truth your whole life is not. And I could like, she like sat up straighter, and you could see this like 5,000 pounds of just this like icky, I don't know even what to call it. It was just this energy, this dark, heavy energy just like rolled off of her. And she sat up straighter, and her whole demeanor shifted. I mean, her face looked different, but it was like her energy, her aura, everything just shifted. And I started to cry. It was like so incredible. And I was just like, this woman is never gonna feel that way again. Like, she just shed this old garbage, like this limiting thing that had just been keeping her stuck for so long. And it was amazing. And I've never seen it like that before. I've heard people talk about it. I've experienced it myself. But to actually see the shift was really incredible, was really inspiring. And what I mean when I say an energetic shift is you start just attracting different things. Your thought patterns change. How you view things changes. And for me personally, I used to be very defensive. I used to, right? Like, there's all these little things that we do. And as you start eliminating these beliefs, they start to affect every part of your life. Like, I see it in my parenting, and I see it in my relationships, and I see it with work, and I see it with even my passions. Like, I'm an avid water woman. I spend so much time in the ocean doing all these crazy ocean sports. And even how I start pushing there, or how I start feeling comfortable saying that's too big and I don't have anything to prove and I'm going to stay on the beach, which in the past had been something that was really hard for me. Like, I had to go bigger. I had to prove. And then I was like, this isn't fun. I don't want to be doing this. But it was hard to stop because I felt like it was part of my identity. It meant something about me. If I didn't go, people would think this, or I would think this, or it would somehow change who I was. And freeing yourself from these limitations opens up possibilities for you to be more authentic, to act differently, to say no, to not people please, to say, actually, this is what I want, and I'm going to follow my heart and my passion and my authenticity because this doesn't resonate. And it just gives you, it just opens up possibilities. It's like taking off these cages that we live in, and every cage you remove, just you have more expanse to move around in.
This is great. Thank you for this. And actually, let me ask something more specific, because this is so intriguing the way that you describe it about, the change that can happen. So let's put a specific example. Let's say someone listening right now, they have an awareness, an understanding of that limiting belief we were saying earlier. I'm not good enough. There is, to a large extent, they are aware that it's there in the background.
Sure.
So what would the steps be, or how are there some steps that the Lefkoe method would help with, processing and eliminating that as an overview? Of course, I don't expect you to go into the details, but just so we can get an understanding of the method as a method.
Sure. So it's literally a step by step. You find the belief, and just for another example, a really common belief that people are aware of is something's wrong with me. And you'll hear people actually say it out loud. Oh, there's just something wrong with me. And so you find the source of the belief first. And when we're 4, 5, 6 years old, this is when we're forming all our beliefs about the world and ourself and life and relationships and money and, right, how things are, how we are. And we don't say, oh, my parents do this. We say, oh, people do this, right? And everything becomes about us. So dad's busy, working all the time. He comes home, he's tired, mom's depressed, whatever, right? Whatever example you want. And we don't go, oh gosh, my parents are terrible with time management and my mom's dysfunctional and she's battling this, illness and my dad's just trying to provide for us. We go, oh, I must not be good enough because I'm not getting my needs met. There must be something wrong with me. Oh, I'm not important. Nobody ever asks you anything. Oh, what I want doesn't matter. And so we kind of internalize these things. And once you form a belief, it does become the truth and your life becomes consistent with it. That's what shows up for you, right? When you look at patterns, and so often people that grow up in abusive households go into abusive relationships. The beliefs you form perpetuate the patterns. And it's not a conscious thing. It's nobody's fault. It's just, right? It's just how it works. So you find the source and you say, does it make sense that these events, you can come up with some specific ones, would lead a young child to conclude there's something wrong with me? People say, yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And then you kind of imagine going back in time to one of those events and you're able to see everything. Okay. I can see my dad drinking. I can see him yelling. I can see my mom crying. I can see the broken glass on the floor. I can see the couch. I can see what I'm wearing. You just really make it real. And you don't have to relive any trauma. You just go back and you realize that in that event, we can see all these things. Like color, shape, texture, location. You can point them out to me. And you realize that you can't actually see your belief in that event. It doesn't actually exist. And sometimes that really can be enough of a shift by itself. Typically, it's not. And you go back to multiple events. Okay, you're in school and you get the answer wrong and you get an F on your test. Where is I'm stupid? If we bring 100 people back in time with us, are they going to see, oh, this person is stupid? And, oh, maybe they don't understand math. Maybe they're not learning in their learning style. Maybe as a child you were stupid, but that doesn't mean you'll always be. So you realize that you didn't actually see it in the world. And then you're able to go through and come up with alternative interpretations. So what else could it have meant that you did poorly in school? Oh, yeah, again, could be I wasn't learning in my learning style. Could be I had crappy teachers. It could be I was so interested in these other things that I was focusing on the things I was interested in and didn't have the attention span to learn math because it wasn't interesting to me. Maybe, so you just come up with all these different interpretations other than, for example, I'm stupid. And you realize that what you said, this belief you formed, is one possible interpretation of these events. It's not the truth. And then you imagine going back in time and giving those events a different meaning. So imagine that, you had a little spirit animal, guardian angel, whatever you're into, some being on your shoulder. And as you are growing up, every time you get an F, this thing says, oh, you're in a really crappy school system and they don't know how to teach. They're trying to have you memorize stuff. You want to understand concepts. You want the meat of it. You're not into memorizing just for the sake of forgetting. Yeah. So of course you're not going to do well. This is about the school system. This has nothing to do with you. And you kind of find another interpretation that just really resonates and makes sense to you. And you imagine giving the same event that other meaning. And as you do, the feeling shifts, completely shifts. You no longer feel stupid. So, sometimes when people are looking at stuff with their parents and they're like, oh, I was so angry and I felt so powerless and, I felt there's something wrong with me, whatever it is. And sometimes those alternative interpretations can be, that's how my dad was raised. My dad doesn't know how to show me that he loves me because nobody ever showed him. He grew up with abuse. This is the only way he knows how to parent. He doesn't even know how to treat me differently because nobody ever treated him well. And now he's living out of his beliefs and he doesn't feel like he's good enough. So he's projecting that on me. And all of a sudden it can switch to this compassion, which is a very different feeling. So you realize that the feeling you felt at that time didn't come from the event. It came from the meaning you gave that event. And if you had given that event a different meaning, you would have never felt I'm stupid or I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy or I'm not deserving or there's something wrong with me. And if you hadn't felt that then, you wouldn't feel it today. So you understand that events in and of themselves don't mean anything. They had consequences. Consequences were scary, painful, hard. Never invalidate how hard someone's childhood was. But that the emotions we feel and the thoughts we have come from the meanings we give those events, not the events themselves. And then there's a few kind of little cleanup pieces, but those are the fundamental basis of the steps of the process. And by the time you realize you never saw it in the world, and then people are kinesthetic and they go, yeah, but I felt it, so I know it's true. Well, yeah, but we can change the feeling. So we can change the feeling. The feeling doesn't prove the belief is true. And then there's this moment where you just go, oh my gosh. And it's, yeah, go ahead.
No, thank you. That's a very, it's a great explanation. And you said, you mentioned the word interpretation, the word meaning, and I think there a lot of truth for someone to at least contemplate that, it's always about how we interpret events rather than the events themselves and the meaning.
Yeah. And there's a really neat tool that I teach people that they can just take out into their lives, right? So here's an event, right? The event is I'm walking down the street and there's a man. That's the event. I gave that event the meaning, he could hurt me. I now feel scared. That is a real feeling. My thoughts are, how do I get away? I'm scared this man's going to hurt me. I could also walk down the street and see that same man and say, oh, there's a man here. Nobody's going to mess with me because that guy could protect me. And now I feel safe. And I could walk down the street and go, man, that guy's really handsome. He's got some really nice arms, And now I feel kind of excited. It's the same exact event. 3 different meanings, 3 completely different emotions. So it's not the event that causes it. It's the meaning that we give. And we're meaning making machines. We do it all day long. We go out into the world and somebody cuts us off, or somebody doesn't smile at us, or somebody doesn't invite us to something, or we see someone in the store and they don't say hi, right? We see this person in the store and we go, oh gosh, they must be mad at me. I did something wrong. They don't like me. Right. And if you can stop and go, well, what else could it mean that they didn't say hi? Yes. Maybe they have a headache. Maybe they're fighting with their boyfriend. Maybe their dog died. Maybe they saw me and I was scowling and they thought I was having a bad day. So they're trying to give me space because they actually like me a lot. Like, we have no idea what it means. And even if that person is mad at us or doesn't like us, it still doesn't mean anything about us. You can have 100 people in a room that say, you know what, I really don't like Blake. It doesn't make me any less likable of a person. We could have 100 people in the room that say, gosh, Blake's great. We really like her. Nothing is changing about who I am. I'm still the same person, regardless of what other people say or think. So even if that person is mad at us, it still doesn't change anything about us. And when you realize that the meaning you're giving this event is just one interpretation, and it could mean anything, that emotion goes away. And that's a tool that people can actually just start using in their day-to-day lives. Anytime you have a negative emotion, what meaning am I giving to this event? And what else could it mean?
This is a great, very practical tool. So thank you for that. To stop and say what else could this mean? Because that's great. It's very useful and yeah, no, that's brilliant. Blake, where will you direct the listener who has found all this very intriguing and would like to learn more about you and the method?
Yeah. So my website and my email are just my name. So Blake Lefkoe,
Mhm.
BLAKELEF as in Frank, KOE.com. And then the email is at Gmail. And if you go to the website at the bottom, there's a link to schedule a free consultation. And you can ask me any questions, share your doubts, share your experience. I'm open to all of it. Whenever, whatever you have to say, I'm happy to hear. And
That's
if you want to
great.
know more, if you want to know how it works, or you can share your pattern and ask specifically how I can help you, I'm happy for all of that. And if you want to just shoot me an email and that feels more comfortable, we'll respond to it.
That's great because I think that the prospect of eliminating even one limiting belief, let alone many, but even one ruling limiting belief, it's a very interesting prospect anyway. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's I just want to give one example, and because different patterns are going to take different, and everyone's different. Um, but I've had clients that have come in. I had this one client who came in with procrastination, and she eliminated two beliefs, and she just like went out and just opened her own business, and I mean she was just like on fire. And I was like, it was just so amazing to watch. And I had another client who came in and she was a lawyer. Her parents were very strict. Like, you're going to be a lawyer. This is your life. A is this, that. And she was like, I'm just not happy. Like, I'm just not fulfilled. I'm not content.
mm,
This isn't what I want to
mm,
do,
mm,
but this is what I have to do. And we had 5 sessions. And I think during the second session, we eliminated a belief like, you can't do what you love and make money.
yes.
And somewhere in that session, I think it was that was second or third, and she came back and she was like, Blake, not only do I see the possibility for doing something different with my life, I know what I want to do with my life. And she started another business that was like so random.
Mm,
And every session she would come back and she said, I built a website. I did a photo shoot. I got my first client. And it's just so neat to see how the patterns shift, and like you're saying, sometimes there is that one belief that just unlocks so much. And when you start cleaning up all the other stuff around it, the possibilities that show up, and people are like, oh, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And all of a sudden they hang up from the call and somebody reaches out to them to work with them. They start getting a client, and stuff like that happens all the time within minutes. It's just, and that's that energetic shift, right?
great.
You're
That's
changing the
great.
energy that you're putting out into the
Great.
world, and you just start attracting things. And it's amazing. It's
That's
just so freeing.
fantastic. That's fantastic. Blake, before I wrap up the conversation for today, I do have a couple of quick questions I always ask. And the first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
I think it's consciously developing yourself. Like, what can your life look like? What can it feel like to be you? And so often we're just a product of our environments and what we're told and what we see, and life has to look a certain way. And stepping back from that and saying, no, it doesn't. I want to feel a certain way. I want my life to be a certain way. And I'm going to do that intentionally. I'm going to develop this life, this persona, this,
Mm. Mm.
and doing it with a sense of purpose and intention and what you think as opposed to what others think.
That's great. And a hypothetical question, if you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what's one piece of advice you would give her?
Nothing. Because everything I've done up to now has gotten me to where I am. And if I changed anything, I wouldn't be here. And I love where I'm at. So I just had to go through everything I had to go through.
Blake, I want to thank you very much for this conversation. I enjoyed it very much, and there were some very useful things said. And I will once more repeat that practice of stopping and assessing whether the meaning you give to the situation, or asking the question actually, because that makes it much simpler. What else could this mean? It's a very powerful way to recalibrate things.
Yeah, even for parenting, right? When your kid's
It's
upset, and you go, "Oh, it
any
means they don't respect me." For
any
anything.
event that might happen that is not to our expectation, we can assess the meaning. So it's a great exercise.
Yeah.
I want to wish you all the very best with carrying on and seeing and creating this transformation for people. And I will leave it to you for your parting words.
I just thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation. And to anyone listening, just know that life doesn't have to look any certain way. And you really are able to create so much possibility when you get out of your own way. And that's amazing. I mean, I still have someone that I trade sessions with, and I work on myself all the time. You just find little things that come up. Weight stuff, this stuff, that stuff, parenting stuff, work stuff, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's freeing. Getting rid of your limitations and seeing what's possible is incredible. So yeah, thank you again. It was an honor to be here.
And before I leave you for now, I have one last question for you. Do you seek to master your life and live with purpose and fulfillment? I'm sure that by now you have realized that personal development is a lifelong journey, and it's great to be able to share this journey with like-minded people, to support and to be supported. Join our free community, the Mastery Seekers Tribe, and be a part of a growing group of people who value personal development like you. Go to masteryseekerstribe.com. Until next time, stand out, don't fit in,